Our next segment at the Girl Up India Leadership Summit 2023 is the much anticipated announcement of Girl Up India's Champion of Change Awards 2023. It is my privilege to introduce our guest of honor, the United Nations Resident Coordinator for India, Mr. Shombi Sharp. Mr. Shombi Sharp, a national of the United States of America, is the UN Resident Coordinator for India since November 2021. Mr. Sharp has devoted more than 25 years of his career to promoting inclusive and sustainable development internationally, bringing experience he has acquired at the United Nations and externally to this new position. Within the organization, he most recently served as United Nations Resident Coordinator in Armenia after holding several leadership positions at United Nations Development Program, where he was Resident Representative in Armenia, Deputy Resident Representative in Georgia, Deputy Country Director in Lebanon, Regional HIV/AIDS Practice Team Leader for UNDP Europe, and the Commonwealth of Independent States in the Russian Federation, Program Manager for the Western Balkans in New York, and Assistant Resident Representative in the Russian Federation. Prior to joining the United Nations, Mr. Sharp began his career in the development with the international non-profit Care International in Zimbabwe. Not only this, he is also a published author of works in health economics and was a United States Agency for International Development policy champion, as well as a nominee for the UNDP Administrators Award. It is an honor to welcome you, sir. I request you to please join us on stage to address the youth in the audience with your inspiring words.
Wow, what an amazing agenda for the day. What an incredible crowd here. I have to say, to be able to join inspirational speakers like Dia Mirza, our very good friend and advocate of the United Nations, Harnaz, Sandhu, Sanjana, Sangi, Lisa, Mangaldas, Rajshri, Deshpande, so many others, and most of all, to join you, the inspiring young women leaders here in the room. I have to say, Namaskar. Mujhe Girl Up Summit mein aakar bahut khushi hui, bahut bahut. Absolutely delighted on behalf of the United Nations in India, and as representative of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, to be here to help play a small part in celebrating the change makers who have been on stage throughout the day and are there in the room, using your voice and your skills to quite simply make a better world. I can truly feel the Nari Shakti in the room. Thank you so much for this special occasion. And let me thank appreciate the Girl Up Summit leaders for organizing this under the All Critical Future 2030 theme, with a focus on the SDGs, resonating with the theme of the International Day of the Girl Child, invest in girls' rights, our leadership, our well-being. And dear friends, as we all know too much, the world is facing a cascading set of crises, a polycrisis, as is often heard, from conflict to difficult global economic outlook to the enduring scourge of violence against women and girls to the ongoing triple planetary crisis, the greatest existential threat to all. As the Secretary General says, we are now facing not global warming, but global boiling. And as the world came together in New York, and in fact, I've had the great pleasure to be there and to listen to much of the important advocacy of Dia Mirza and others, we see that the Sustainable Development Goals are woefully off track. Only 15% perhaps on the right path. Fully a third either stalled or in fact moving into reverse. And yet, the point of today is to focus on sources of optimism and those consistent truths that we know that can help guide us through these tempests, the anchors of the 2030 agenda. And first, more than anything else, we know that advancing progress on gender equality, including girls' leadership, is the single greatest force multiplier to achieving all of our collective aspirations. Women and men, girls and boys, communities, companies, nations. As the Secretary General says, gender equality is the unfinished business of our time. And the evidence is very clear. Only through the equal participation of both halves of humanity can we achieve the SDGs. Can we hope to overcome pandemics, conflict, and achieve the development challenges that promise now more than ever? Having women with equal representation in Parliament is linked with stronger climate commitments and higher levels of investment in education and in health. We know that when women take more leadership roles in public administrations, that governments are more responsive, more accountable, less corruption, and the quality of public services improve. And yet globally, still women make up far too little of leadership positions in the public sector and in the private sector. At COP27 last year, for example, out of 110 leaders speaking about the urgency of climate action, only 7 women at that leadership table were women. Only 7 leaders were women. And the number of women representatives at the leadership table in the United Nations General Assembly was also inexcusably low. Second, gender equality is both core human rights, first and foremost, there is no doubt about that, but it is also simply smart economics. There's no mystery, there's no controversy, it's just common sense. A fair playing field for all of us on truly equal footing to use all of our capabilities allows communities and nations to in turn achieve their potential. There should not be anybody who guesses the logic of that. And third, gender equality, and this connects to the previous point, is not a women's issue alone. It is a men's and a boy's issue. And I'm very pleased to see some men and boys in the crowd, not nearly enough, but this is a truly important point that we must together join in the critical push for gender equality. While every great human rights advancement has been made with those whose rights have been denied at the front, and gender equality is no different, women in front, allies are important. We need men and boys as allies. We need them to be aware, accountable, and unafraid to support the movement for gender equality, for the benefit not just of women and girls, again, but for all of us, for ourselves. In fact, I'm often trying to think of different ways to explain this concept. I think of economics, the concept of marginal product. And my message to the men and boys is, you know what happens when you achieve gender equality as you approach parity? It's a simple economics. If you have too much of one input in a production function, the added value of each additional unit is quite low. So if you have a leadership of 10 men in a company or leadership of 10 men sitting around the global table, the added value, what each person is bringing as a special experience being a man is very, very low. So as you approach gender equality, gender parity, actually the value of being a man or a boy in the room goes up. It's truly a win-win proposition. Now, the bad news is we are still terribly, terribly far away. By some estimates, gender equality at present trends is 300 years in the future. Obviously, nobody has that kind of time. Globally, girls aged 5 to 14 spend 160 million more hours every single day on unpaid care and domestic work than men and boys across the world. According to the World Bank, more than 1 in 4 women aged 15 years and older have suffered violence at the hands of their close partners. And only 1 in 3 business owners globally are women. We are missing out, for example, here in India, on a potential $770 billion added to the economy. Globally, $12 to $28 trillion due to lack of gender equality. Who doesn't want hundreds and trillions of dollars of new wealth? So the good news is that we have the solutions in hand, that we stand at the confluence of 2 important sources of optimism. One is India, the other is you, the young people in the room, especially girls and the boys too. More young minds, a greater youth generation than any country has ever had in history to tap. An incredible demographic and gender dividend. During this year, we saw India's leadership growing. The G20 took women-led development to new prominence across the G20 work. The New Delhi Leaders' Declaration delivered the strongest ever gender equality language in the G20. The government of India is putting forth important programs to promote women's leadership, from the new Women's Reservation Bill in Parliament to creating an enabling environment to bridge gender digital divides, to increase financial inclusion, especially for women and in rural areas, to the Mudra Yojana loan scheme for small businesses, 70% of which are women-led, and building greater awareness on gender diversity. Globally, just 1/3 of students in STEM are women and girls, and yet India has achieved near parity. We see increasingly that India is a leader in terms of women's engagement in the area of AI. But we need to be sure that women are moving from the classroom into jobs, especially in STEM. Everywhere we see the impact of women's leadership at the global level, in the response to COVID, the response to climate, the response to peace and security, and here I would note that India has been a leader in bringing women into peace and security through UN peacekeeping, and even landing on the moon. We saw the importance of women, science, and leadership for the Chandrayaan-3 lunar landing. So to conclude, dear friends, the UN, the United Nations in India, is incredibly honored to continue to partner with you, with government, with civil society, with business, on supporting this all-important issue of our time, gender equality, and tapping the incredible dynamism of India's greatest youth generation. Together, all of us, we can do this. The young people and jo dil se young hai, those of us who are young at heart, the girls and boys, women and men, sate to sambhav hai, I always like to say. And I have to conclude, since my good friend Dia Mirza is in the room, I have to make a stab at concluding with a Dia Mirza dialogue, which I think captures the spirit of the moment. Hamari jo har adat hai, wo kabhi na kabhi, hamari choice hua karti thi. Choice sahi hona chahiye bas. We have to make the right choice. Every habit was at one time a choice. The choice just has to be right. Let's make the choice for gender equality. Thank you very much. Bahut bahut dhanyawad.
Thank you for your words, sir. I'm sure they have filled our audience with enthusiasm and hope for a better future. Joining Mr. Sharp, we have a special guest, actor, producer, and UN Secretary General's advocate for the SDGs, Dia Mirza. Dia Mirza is an award-winning Indian actor, producer, eco-investor, Green Entrepreneur, UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador, and United Nations Secretary General's Advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. She is also a Global Ambassador for the International Fund for Animal Welfare, Artist Ambassador for Bal Raksha Bharat, and Board Member of Sanctuary Nature Foundation. She is the founder of One India Stories, a nascent production house that aims to tell stories with intentionality and far-reaching impact. In all the diverse roles that she plays, Dia has been deeply interested in the human condition, the interconnectedness of all living beings, gender issues, social parity, and a sustainable relationship between humanity and the planet. It is an honor to have you with us, ma'am. I request you to please join us on the stage to address the youth in the audience.
Thank you so much for that really warm introduction. Good afternoon. You know, Shombi is a very hard act to follow because he is so passionate and so wonderful to listen to, and also manages to make us all smile and cheer and feel good. And Shombi, I mean, you know, you said the lines from Thappad almost as well as I did. No, but it's incredible, and I'm always inspired by your passion and your commitment, Shombi. Thank you. You really walk the talk. I, of course, want to thank the Leadership Summit for inviting me here today. It's such a wonderful opportunity to see so many bright, amazing change makers seated here and, of course, across the world who are a part of Girls Up and the extraordinary work that each of you is doing. As an actor and a fervent advocate for youth empowerment, I'm sure through the introduction you've discovered that I'm also a climate justice advocate, and I also believe that every living being on earth is interconnected. And I think in some way, many of us have forgotten that interconnectedness. I always use the example of the fact that, you know, we're probably the only species on the planet that has moved away from the natural world and has built these concrete walls and lives in urban jungles and thinks that we have evolved. But what we are in fact doing is harming all the systems that give us health and secure our lives and our livelihood and our future. So I hope that in the times that we're living in, confronted by this triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss, and the far-reaching impacts and the unknown impacts that it's having on human beings, we can collectively recognize that it's time that we reconnected with nature. It's time that we recognized that interconnectedness that each of us has with the natural world. And it's time that we built a solid future based on that interconnectedness. And that in return will tie into everything that we stand for here today, which is human justice, gender equality, and just a safe and healthy future for all of us, you know, where we can, each of us have agency, opportunity, health, and progress together. I think what's very important also for all of us to recognize is the fact that the health of our planet has a direct impact on our well-being, on every one of us, with a disproportionate consequence for girls and women. Climate change is causing a disproportionate impact on women and girls. Every part of the world is experiencing this, and we are experiencing it in India as well. As I look at all of you young change makers in the audience today, I'm happy to see that there is a space that is truly for and by the youth. And thank you, Girls Up, for creating that space. However, I think it's equally important to be cognizant of the fact that it is not easy to occupy spaces that raise your voice for the issues that you care about as a young person in today's world, especially if you're a girl or a woman. Adolescents and youth, especially young girls, often encounter formidable obstacles on their journey to success and on their journey to access. Be it access to education, opportunities, resources, quality healthcare, skills, harmful gender stereotypes, or strict gender roles, all come in the way. As United Nations Environment Programme's ambassador, I'm deeply passionate about the intersection between gender and climate justice. Climate change doesn't affect everyone equally. And women and girls, particularly in the most vulnerable communities, bear a disproportionate burden. The recent climate disasters have affected women differently. Not only has it displaced entire communities, but it has also placed an additional burden on women and girls who often find themselves in more vulnerable positions. These disasters expose them to various risks, including gender-based violence, limited access to healthcare resources and services, and disrupted education. We all know that a very, very high percentage of girls were out of school because of COVID. And it's taken a lot of work and will continue to take a lot of work to bring girls back to school post-COVID. This has been true for both man-made and natural disasters, from floods affecting North India to earthquakes in Morocco and Turkey. It may seem daunting to define your role in the face of such mighty calamities. I know there are many days when I feel very overwhelmed, but I take great strength in the knowledge that each and every one of us has to act on the choice that we can make as individuals. And I'm reminded of a very powerful poem that Maya Angelou wrote about the bird, the caged bird. And even though the bird is caged, the bird can sing. And that is the power of our own uniqueness, our individuality, and our choice. And we must, I always say, open the door, not just for ourselves, sometimes we have to break it down, but hold the door open so that other women and other girls can pass through with us. It's high time that we come together, and this is such an important part of it. We need to come together to break the barriers that hinder the growth and aspirations of 253 million adolescents in India. That's a lot of young people. And it is the young that will help each other. And of course, Shombi, the young at heart. I'm not going to take more time, but I am definitely going to, conclude this with saying that there is a great power in supporting one another, leading each other out of hardships, and recognizing the fact that though certain realities and the crisis that we are, experiencing in the world can be debilitating, it can cause serious anxiety and can distress us. And sometimes the change that we're working for may not happen immediately. But every single moment that we work towards that change is what will give us strength. And I know all of us who are on the ground doing the work recognize the merits in that comment, because it is truly what gives me strength every day. When we impact the life of one person, when we make a difference in one person's life, when we're able to affect one moment of change, it gives us strength. And that's the strength we need to hold on to. And Jane Goodall is somebody I really deeply admire and look up to. And she always says that don't allow the enormity of the crisis to weaken you. Take strength in the fact that every choice that you make on the ground every day impacts change. And that's all that really matters. And I think it's important that we envision a future that is only complete with girls' leadership. I don't want to repeat anything that Shombi has said already, because he's made some very important points. But I think it's impossible for us to imagine a future that is not led by girls and is not female. Don't you all agree? I think that together, with support, with co-creation, and creation is a very important part of this, innovation, collaboration, partnership, we can strengthen each other's efforts and truly move towards defining and creating a more sustainable world. And I do believe in the power of empathy, and I do believe that girls have infinite empathy, and we can together create a more peaceful, a more compassionate, and a more beautiful world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, ma'am. I'm sure they have left everyone as inspired as I am right now. It is my privilege to invite you as our special guest. Without further ado, let us begin with the much anticipated, the segment which is known as the Champion of Change Award Ceremony. The award ceremony is designed to honor the selected young changemakers and provide them with a platform that spotlights and amplifies their impactful work.
Applications for the awards were opened in August. Girl Up India received and reviewed over 100 applications across 5 categories, namely gender equality, climate justice, gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health rights and justice, and mental health. Today, we recognize the winners and announce their incredible work.
I request Mr. Shombi Sharp and Ms. Dia Mirza to join Country Director Girl Up India Aditi Arora and Associate Youth Engagement Girl Up India Kunalika Gautam for the award ceremony.
The first award is in the mental health category. Our Future is Kind champion is Saida Nurul Zain.
Our next award is in the climate justice category. Our next award is in the climate justice category. Our Future is Green champion is Nehal Raj Pradhan.
Our next award is in the gender-based violence category. Our Future is Safe champion is Pragya Sikka.
Our next award is in the sexual and reproductive health, rights and justice category. Our Future is Inclusive champion is Kriti Tirki.
Our final award is in the gender equality category. Our future is equal champion is Yash Sharma.
I now invite all our winners to come on stage with their award mementos and join the Girl Up India team and our esteemed special guest for a group picture. Congratulations to all the winners for their wonderful achievements. We can't wait to see what you all do next.